Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Welcome back. Or to the new people who are watching for the first time, welcome aboard. I'm Holly Poole. I'm a professional astrologer and healthyologist. Today, I'm going to talk about the new moon, and I'm going to say upcoming new moon because I'm recording this at the ending part of May. And our new moon is actually at June 6th. So I always pull a card um, previous to doing the recording to see exactly what I feel the vibration of this new moon is all about. And this is the actual card that I pulled, and it's called the Astral Body. And this card, you can see the individual is sitting down here by the end of a tree, and they're meditating, but you can see that they are connecting up to their spiritual voice. And I really think that the universe is asking us to connect to our higher self. Call it soul, call it spirit, call it God, call it whatever your personal belief system is. But I believe that we are in a time that we are asked to connect to our higher self. And we're going to see that. You can see that I've called this new moon recording, I've called it My Heart is Full. You will see that over this next beginning part of June, Venus will sit in the heart of the sun. We'll have a Cazimi Venus, which means Venus and the sun will hold the same degree. I think this is very important because we're also in the process of seeing Venus changing from a morning star. Venus has been a morning star for the last 2 years, but Venus is now shifting. She's shifting her energy field, and she's now becoming an evening star. And if you look in your own personal chart, you will see in your chart if Venus is before the sun, then she was actually a morning star. Whereas if Venus is trailing the sun, she was an evening star in your chart. And morning star Venus versus evening star Venus are very different personality types. Perhaps another day for another type of a video. But we see Venus shifting with the sun. This happens every 2 years, and we're going to see, like, the beginning part of 2025, we're going to have a retrograding Venus, which, again, this happens every 2 years. The ending part of 2024, coming into 2025, we're going to have a retrograding Mars happening throughout December, taking us all the way to February of 2025. So for those of you, for instance, in your personal natal chart that has a very strong Venus, if your Venus is in, say, Taurus or Libra, you're very much a Venus type individual, versus if your Mars is in Aries or Scorpio, then Mars is playing a very, very important part in your chart. And therefore, when we have planets going around the zodiac, right now, as I'm doing this recording, Mars is presently going through Aries. So for those of you who have Mars in Aries in your personal chart, in your personal natal chart, you actually are having a Mars return. So one of the things about readings and doing readings, each year in an individual's life, let me back up. As an evolutionary astrologer, if you're new to this channel, you will know that I believe we choose our birth date, birthplace, birth time, birth parents before coming to Earth. So our whole time on Earth is about evolving and becoming a more evolved individual. Well, there's a lot of planning that has gone into that. And so with readings, I'm hoping when you go to see your astrologer, I may be a bit biased, but I do believe you need to see your astrologer once a year. Certainly doesn't have to be me. There's tons and tons and tons of astrologers out there. It's important to find an astrologer that you can relate with. Looking at your chart for the upcoming year, which is our birthday chart, know what some of the major themes are. What are some of the things it's important for you to be focusing on? Some years it's really important for us to be focusing on our health. Some other years it might be important to be focusing on relationships. Some other years it may be really important to focus on our work world, our families, our life. Some years are easier than others to have a focus in a certain section of our personal chart. But I digress. Nothing new for me, for those of you who've been following me. So let me share my screen here so we can at least put up the chart. And the chart I've put up here is actually June 1st. So we really haven't even got to the new moon yet. But there's a big, great big, huge, in my world, great big, huge, hallelujah, amen, praise be, that we actually have Jupiter now moved into the sign of Gemini. If you've been following me for quite some time, you will have heard me talk about the first few months of the year, actually the first maybe even 4 months of the year, we had very little air happening in the heavens. Very little air means that life feels dense. There's a density to things. Well, now, at least in air, we've got Jupiter just moved in there. Jupiter is going to be in Gemini for the next couple of years. Jupiter, Venus, not a couple of years, actually about a year and a bit. So Jupiter is now in Gemini. That's an air sign. Venus is in Gemini. That's an air sign. The sun is in Gemini. That's an air sign. And Pluto is in Gemini. That's an air sign. So we're now getting a sense of a flow of air. It should be making life a bit easier to at least do some breathing. When we think about air, we think about the flow of air. And people who are air signs, I've talked about this before, Gemini, Libra, Aquarius, they need fans, they need air flow. Now, every sign needs air flow in order to have flow of information, flow of conversations, flow of ideas. That all shifts and changes directly with the vibration of the planetary alignments. So I'm really happy to see we can actually breathe again. And that's important. We're going to see Venus and the sun is going to be doing a dance. And one of the things connected around this dance is all in the sign of Gemini. Now, Gemini is a mutable sign. We have cardinal, we have fixed, we have mutable. Jupiter has just spent the last couple of years going through Taurus, which is fixed. Fixed in mindset, fixed in solidity, fixed, Now it's in Gemini. As with everything, we know that the air signs, but specifically Gemini, can sometimes have a bit of a scattered energy. What it means is they're interested in this, and that goes on for a little while. And then they're interested in this, and that goes on for a little while. And then they're interested in this, and that goes on for a little while. And that's what we're going to find energetic-wise over the next while. Jupiter is not going to start to retrograde until October 9th. It will actually start to retrograde. So Jupiter is going to be straight full on. It's going to get all the way up to 21 degrees. So if you have anything in your chart, which is in the sign of Gemini, and anything, here Jupiter's at 1 degree, Venus is at 10 degrees, the sun's at 11 degrees. So if you in your chart have anything in Gemini right on up to 21 degrees, that Jupiter is going to hit off all that. Do we like Jupiter? We love Jupiter. Jupiter is considered one of the beneficial planets. Jupiter is about expansion. Jupiter is about good luck. Jupiter is about opening of doors. We like Jupiter. And Jupiter likes being in Gemini. The other thing is Venus right now. It's also going through the sign of Gemini. And Venus in Gemini is about loving to have conversation, loving to get together with people, loving to be able to share ideas. Now, let me also say Jupiter was in this sign in Gemini 12 years ago. So go back to 2012, roughly about 2012. That was the end of the Mayan calendar. A client of mine just mentioned to me this morning when I was talking about 12 years ago. But some of the same themes you were working on 12 years ago are some of the same type of theme that you're working on now in your life. So I did want to go to June 1st there, like I said, so that we would be able to see Jupiter has moved into Gemini. Amazing times for writings, amazing times for speaking type contracts, amazing times for radio shows, TV shows, social media. Geminis are some of our top people in the marketing world because, again, it gives them the voice, the conversation. In medical astrology, Gemini is connected with our lungs. That's why lots of times we have our Gemini friends can often have asthmatic conditions or conditions centered around their lungs. It also has to do with our hands in medical astrology. So when we think about Gemini in medical astrology, it has to do with the pairs within our body, the pair of lungs, the pair of hands. And so vibrationally, to help with that scatteredness that we sometimes feel, it's a good idea to find a sense of grounding or maybe even connecting with the earth with your fingers. So that can be pottery, that can be gardening, that can be feeling that sense of earth to give you a sense of grounding. Before we actually even get to the new moon, so when we get to the 3rd of June, the new moon's the 6th, we get to the 3rd of June, now we've got Venus lined up in the heart of the sun. You see here, the sun, Venus is at 13 degrees Gemini. The sun is at 13 degrees Gemini. This is such a wonderful, lovely day because when Venus sits in the heart of the sun, this is such a time to connect, as I talked about with that card, coming up to the higher being, the connection with the higher mind. And I want to tell you a little story. So about 3 weeks ago, somebody had mentioned to me about a greenhouse. I thought, oh, this is great. The story is about reaching to the higher mind, by the way, if you're wondering where I'm going with this. And I said, I think I'd like to have a greenhouse. I am big into the gardening. You've heard me talk about setting the seeds at the solar eclipse. Um, anyway, I looked it up on Amazon. The one I was looking at was like $125 or $50 or something. I said, I read all the reviews. I looked at it. My husband was downstairs watching TV. I went down. I talked about it to him. And he said, if you think that can work for you and that's what you'd like to do, then by all means, get it, get it from Amazon. So I'm a big pendulum girl. I learned dowsing a lot of years ago. And so I come up with my pendulum to ask, should I order this greenhouse? Connecting to the higher powers to be. I knew here I wanted that greenhouse. And I worked with the pendulum and said, should I order that greenhouse? And the pendulum said, no. I was like, what? Nah, that can't be right. Let me try it again. Let me connect. Let me connect. And let the higher being feel my heart here that I really want this greenhouse. And I took my pendulum and I asked, should I order this greenhouse from Amazon? The answer was no. I was devastated. I'm like, what? What do you mean? No. How can that possibly be? So I went back to Amazon and I thought maybe it's the wrong one, and I looked, I reread, and then I thought, you know what? You've played this game before, Holly, that you have gone against the higher voice, the higher being, and you've been sorry. So what are you gonna do? So I frumped and I frowned and I'm usually not like that. I'm usually pretty even keeled, but this really knocked me out. And I said to my husband, my pendulum said no. And he said, well, it's up to you what you do. Well, I knew that. Time went on and days went on and 2 weeks went by and I went to lunch with someone and they said, did you know that this particular place had greenhouses, collapsible greenhouses, which is what I was looking for, collapsible greenhouses on for half price? Really? I come home. I was all excited about this. I asked my pendulum, should I go and get this particular greenhouse? The answer was absolutely yes, not a question. So I said to my husband, we're going off to get the greenhouse. Off we went. Do you know that was the exact greenhouse that I was looking at on Amazon, but now I had it for half price. So sometimes it is about faith, and it is, looking at this picture, it is about the faith that there is a higher power, God, angels, spirit guides, I don't care what you call it. This is exactly the timing for this new moon that we're coming into. And I'm going to tell you that with every new moon, you want to set intentions. And I'll tell you what intentions to set as we go through. Just stay with me here. When we get to the 3rd of June, also Mercury will have now moved into Gemini. So now we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 planets in air, and you will find that the airflow will work so well. In astrology, we also have a sextile, the connection. Everything in astrology, it's never about one planet and one planet alone. It's always about how they connect with every other planet directly in our chart. That's what this whole mess in here happens to look like. And that tells us the strength of that particular planet. So Mercury is going to be having a long, hard chat with Pluto and saying to Pluto, look, now I'm open for discussions. Now I'm open for options. Remember, Gemini is mutable. So mutability says we're open. We're open to mutate into whatever it is that you need me to do. And so Mercury will say to Pluto, I wasn't open to closing that door before. I wasn't really open to allow that change into my life. But right now, I think I actually am, because Mercury and Jupiter, Mercury's at 0 degrees, Jupiter's at 2 degrees, so that's a difference of 2. But that's creating the trine here with Pluto. And there will be a realization that if I want to get to plan B, C, D in life, I got to let some of the things go. And part of it is going to be mindset. And this is going to be some big days to think about it. Now, we are in the dark of the moon here, because the moon is looking to come to line up with the sun. But on the 3rd, we're in the dark of the moon. Another great timing in life to connect with that higher power, that higher being. Working with your angel cards, asking, can you be with me? I tell you, before I put my feet to the floor every morning, I ask for guidance. Please be with me today. Please guide me today. Even though, as we know, I just with the story, I don't always like the guidance I get. But it's about faith. And it's about that inner feeling of being that authentic person who actually really does work with our higher realm. Then we're going to come to the 4th of June. We still have Venus in the heart of the sun. They're still at the exact same degree. But not only that, now on this day, we also have Mercury and Jupiter. So the conversations about moving forward, where we're going. Gemini remembers conversations. We're now really, I'm going to say like a day and a half away. I realize that the new moon is on the 6th, but a lot of that depends on where you live, time zone wise. Some of them are very late on the night of the 5th. And so I'm going to go right to the 6th right now. But you see, even on the 5th of June, we're now 3 days in a row, and we've got Venus and the sun. Now they're both at 15 degrees. And then we come to the new moon. Now, the new moon, this to me is a powerful new moon. And it is a huge new moon to set intentions. So let me tell you, if you are an Aries, one of the big things you want to set intentions on is about hopes and dreams and wishes and friends. Looking at over this while, perhaps some friends who have left your life. I don't mean passed on to the other side, but left as in hasn't been around you as much. Aries, you want to set the intentions. And maybe what you want to do is set the intentions for the next 3 or 4 months. So on this particular month in June, I will touch base with Sally. I haven't talked to Sally in a few years. Maybe in July, then I'll touch base with Barbara. I haven't talked with Barbara for quite some time. Then in August, maybe I'll touch base with, somebody else. And think about friends and realize that your intentions for an Aries, this new moon is going to be all connected in a lot of ways about your friends. And perhaps you've just been very, very busy and haven't had a chance to connect with your friends. If you are Taurus, I want your intention is to be very focused on meditation. I want you to set up the intention of meditation. I want you to set up the intention as well of really working on that subconscious mind for you, and to recognize that security is so high on your vibrational need that looking at it and connecting again with Pluto here in Aquarius, what part of your life do you actually need to release and let go of? What fears do you need to release and let go of in order to be able to allow you the power to move forward? You've just had Jupiter, and Uranus is still there, but you've just had Jupiter and Uranus really discombobulate your whole entire world. And now you get the chance to be able to put that world back into alignment. Our Gemini friends, this is a whole new world for you. Jupiter has just entered your realm, and Jupiter will allow so many wonderful opportunities for you. Jupiter will open many doors over the next year. But at this new moon, I want you to take some time and really have you be the one driving the bus versus, somebody driving it for you. But what doors do you want to open? What about our Cancerian friends? Well, our Cancerian friends really need to look at your finances. Finances is going to be very important for you to set the intentions around your financial sides of life. You're going to perhaps want to recognize what is of value and what isn't of value to you anymore. And Cancerians are very traditionalists. So, if it's a family heirloom or it's something connected years ago of value, realize that your values have actually changed in the last while. And perhaps what you held of value before is not what you're holding of value now. So getting your finances in order, setting the intention, sit down in this dark of the moon. So starting from the 4th of June, 5th of June, in the dark of the moon, sit down, scribble out on a piece of paper, scribble out financially where you'd like to be by the end of the year. And I'll tell you what to do with these intentions in a moment. What about our Leo friends? Well, our Leo friends, they're very creative, and lots of times they have a very flowery way of being creative. It is hugely important for our Leo friends to set the intentions, and I want them to write them down, of how they're going to have fun in the next 3 or 4 months. When I talk about Leos, the great things about Leo is they always have a childlike personality to them. And perhaps they felt a bit stressed over the last while, especially for people who may have kids. And so this is about writing out 2 or 3 things that you intend to do throughout this summer. Our Virgo friends, you want to look at your foundations in life. Is your foundations as solid as you would like them to be? And foundations can come connected around our work world. our realm within the family world. This is a time to roll up your sleeves, Virgo, put on a hat, roll up your sleeves, and get a bit of work done. And get things done. Might be yard work, maybe work around your home, for instance, that you've been neglecting for a little while. This new moon in Gemini can really help you set in motion. And I know, before anyone writes in on the bottom, I know there are a lot of people who hate to put things down in writing. But you know why? When you put it down in writing, you now have a commitment. And so if you're going to challenge me, and that's okay, but if you're going to challenge me and say, oh, Holly, I hate writing stuff down, the question I want you to ask you is it because you are fearful of commitment? That's a thought process. What about our Libra friends? Well, our Libra friends are also looking at from the fun perspective, where their fun has changed in a long time. And a lot of this is coming out because of that solar eclipse. I keep going back to it. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. That solar eclipse has made a shifting and change. And it's made a shifting and change on the outside of the Libra because it was in Aries, and Aries is opposite to Libra. So because other people around you have changed, that forces the change in what is fun for the Libra. So it is about that sense of change. What about our Scorpio friends? I want you to work on your health. Scorpio with that new moon in Gemini. Remember we said Gemini is lungs and Gemini is our hands. Scorpio, quite often in medical astrology, sometimes may have some issues with their sexual organs, but also with their eliminative organs, i.e., like their bowel, their urethra. So I want you to set out some intentions with this new moon in Gemini on how you're going to work better towards your health. What about our Sagittarians? Well, our Sagittarians, which is straight across from the sign of Gemini, Sagittarius is here, Gemini is here, so it's straight across from there. And that is a big exploration about self. There is a huge exploration for our Sagittarius friends, especially looking at relationships, partnerships. Are the people around you beneficial to you? Or when you go to coffee with someone or talk with someone on the phone, do you feel a downward drain? So the intentions you want to be looking at is who in the future, over the next 2 or 3 months, are you going to choose to want to hang out with? Aquarians, what are you looking at? Your intentions has to be about change. And you've heard this before. If you always do what you always did, you'll always get what you always got. Pluto is going through that sign of Aquarius. It is trining Gemini. So it says things you've always talked about, things you've always chosen to get in touch with. More than any other sign, I think the Geminis and the Aquarians have to very much get in touch with that higher power. And what about our last but not least, of course, is our Pisces friends. What intentions? I want to learn what new agey tarot, dream interpretation, pendulum work, angel cards, what new vibrational energy. Pisces are also great at the laying on of hands as well. So Reiki and therapeutic touch and all of those. What is your intentions? What is it that you want to learn in this upcoming year? So how are we going to set up these intentions? So I've given each sign there what it is that their intention should be centered around for this new moon. And so the question now is, if you have a clear quartz crystal, so a crystal that is clear, looks like glass, you want to write your intentions on a piece of paper, and then it can be more than one. If you want 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, do that. And then lay your crystal on top, fold over your paper, lay the crystal on top, and then put it somewhere relatively near a window, not in a window, simply because clear quartz can set up a fire. It can, if the vibration of that sun comes down hard enough, on tight enough and heavy enough and hot enough, it will burn that paper. So somewhere near a window, but somewhere, that the sun is not going to massively sit on it for hours on end. So you got your paper folded over, you got your clear quartz crystal on top. I want you to put your right hand over it. Forget about left hand, but just I'm just showing this as your piece of paper. Put your right hand over it and say, I set these intentions to manifest with this new moon. And allow the manifestation to take place. This is an incredible new moon. We've got Venus sitting right in the heart of this new moon. So remember, it's coming from the heart. The vibration is coming from the heart in order to clear and make that energy happen. So it's a very strong, energetic new moon. Then as we move along, the 8th of June, we've got Mars sitting at 29 degrees Aries. That is a very karmic degree. And, we're seeing the US and parts of Canada sort of being inundated with like tornadoes and weather that is very tumultuous. That is Mars in Aries. Mars in Aries is very much about aggressive type weather. So, and Mars will come to line up with Uranus. That will be a day that we will really be talking about weather. Now, that will also be in the Earth sign, so it's probably more along earthquakes and so on. This Mars in air is what's bringing the tornadoes, the wind. Mars in air, Mars in Aries, not an air sign. Mars in Aries is a fire, but Mars is aggressive because it rules Aries. On the 9th of June, Mars is going to move to Taurus. Taurus is not going to put up with that aggressive Aries from Mars. It's not. It's going to go, Mars, sit down, shut up. You're now under my rule. Well, actually, it's under the rule of Venus. But in Earth, Taurus really loses a lot of its central part of power. It will create a square. We don't like squares. It will create a square with Pluto. So there will be an event, probably again around the whole banking industry or cryptocurrency or something of that nature. So continue for those of you who choose to want to watch the news and so on. This is an interesting day to watch, to see I'm willing to bet that this is a Bitcoin or a cryptocurrency issue that gets uncovered. Remember that solar eclipse, yeah, and back to that, April the 8th, was at 19 degrees, 18, 19 degrees. Well, see, Chiron, remember that whole big solar eclipse YouTube video that I did? I talked about Chiron and how Chiron was at 19 degrees. Chiron's only managed to get to 22 degrees. So let me tell you, Chiron is still pushing forward on trying to work its way from the wounded warrior to the greatest healer. It is still working that magic. Remember that eclipse was for 4 minutes. It goes for 4 months. April, May, June, July. It is still in very full force. And Venus, being at 20 degrees Gemini, is creating a sextile. Yep, we like sextiles. But Venus is helping with conversations. Venus is also giving you people around you who are actually being able to help you through this. Let's move our way along. And June the 11th now, we're starting to dissipate. Venus has gone behind the sun. We call this behind the sun. So Venus now has become an evening star. Venus had been the morning star, then she connected with the sun. Now she's going to be rising later than the sun will be rising. So she will become an evening star. This is going day by day by day. Now, we always see Mercury and Venus in the heavens is never overly far away. The sun is at 22 degrees Gemini. We're at 13th of June. And now what's happening, of course, is that now this sun is creating a sextile with Chiron. So a lot of events that would have shifted and changed, the energy shifted and changed. A lot of you may not have felt it. It's not about, I felt it, you didn't feel it. It's not about that. I'm telling you, there was a shift, a vibrational shift in energy. Some of you would have really felt that shift. Some of you, not so much. That's okay. That's all right. But as everything is shifting and turning, things are changing. One of the things I talked about, I said we were waiting for Jupiter to go into Gemini. That's going to help to bring down the inflation rate. It's going to help to bring down that mindset and vibration. As we come to when we come back to, if we come back to now the 16th of June, now we have Venus at 29 degrees Gemini. That's creating a square. Again, we don't like squares. That's creating a square with Neptune. So this is a particular day that it's going to be very difficult, not impossible, but very difficult to actually be able to come up with any total dream. We will totally continue to change our mind here. What we will love. Do I love this? Yeah, I think so. Ask me in a few hours, maybe not so much. Then as we get to the 17th of June, now we've got Mercury and Venus totally into the sign of Cancer. What sign rules Cancer? The moon. The moon's in Scorpio. So one of the things we're going to see here is this is a day of very emotional conversation. Now we're coming forward towards that next full moon, which is going to be on the 22nd of June, of course, which is the summer solstice coming into that timing, when the sun will enter into Cancer. But we have Mercury and Venus sitting at that exact spot, that when the sun gets to 0 degrees, that's when we get to the summer solstice. Mercury and Venus are just warming up the chair right now, waiting for the sun to come into that alignment. And of course, as we come forward, then Venus and Mercury are going to work their magic together. And Vesta is at 29 degrees Cancer. There's that 29 degrees. Vesta's creating a trine. Again, we like trines. It's a grand trine. So we've got Neptune at 29 degrees Pisces, that's water. We've got Vesta at 29 degrees Cancer, that's water. And we've got the moon at 27 degrees Scorpio, that's water. So let me tell you, that is a very emotional type of a day. And just like I talked about that story about me with the greenhouse, that was a very emotional type day. But in those emotional type days, that is when it is so important to recognize I may be feeling an overwhelming sense of emotion, but perhaps I am not seeing the whole big full picture. So sit in that emotion. We're coming up towards the next full moon by that point in time, but sit in that emotion. Allow yourself that emotional feel within the gut. There's the 20th, there's the 21st, and that, of course, is the day of the summer solstice. When the sun moves into 0 degrees Cancer, we have the summer solstice. And that is a great day to celebrate as well. The day of celebration for me, it's the summer solstice, of course, in the northern hemisphere, and it's the winter solstice in the southern hemisphere. But it's about the many seasons that our whole entire life also goes through and sees, you know? I hope that you are enjoying those videos and perhaps is learning a lot about how to work with the vibrational energies. For those of you who are really doing your intentions, I'd love for you to write me a comment down below. Let me know how your intentions, maybe even if you're happy to share, what some of your intentions would actually look like. Take care. Thank you for being a part of my journey, and I'm happy to be a part of your journey. I look forward to doing the full moon. Happy Intentions Day. Take care.